I guess it wasn't for me, but this side of the one arm is wider than this side, so it takes the longer sleeve. I put a little bit of grease on it as it's recommended, and then I just used a aluminum vice jaw dealy bopper. I'm in my vise. I had to go down and look at my strut and see if those still have bolts on it. I thought I was missing a whole set of bolts. That would have been a bummer. Whoops. You fix it loose? Okay, so I kind of got that installed. I'm going to put the steering rack up there and hopefully that fits. But you probably watched me do the install on these, and you can kind of see that the key is not to ram a jamma it tight until there's zero space at all. Right? You can see this one's a little bit cocked in there. It's probably a manufacturing defect, but there's no head underneath that, or there's no space underneath the head, and there's no space underneath the nut. You kind of do that on all of them. And you want it to be able to freely move up and down. You don't want it to be super crazy tight, because if you do go, you know, gorilla ugga dugga tight on that, it will bind up and it won't move up and down freely. So don't do that. Let's see what it's going to take to get this old K member out. I want to do that first. I might try putting the steering rack on first. Even though it'll be a bigger pain in the ass to muscle around getting it in there, it might be easier to try to line that up when it's outside the car. Let's see. All right. So it's been a couple days. This is where I'm at. So I had to go and get bolts for this. I wasn't able to run my factory bolts. Please note, UPR does sell a kit, like a hardware kit, the whole deal. Clearly I didn't buy it. So I went to the hardware store, picked up some bolts for that. That seemed to work fine. As expected, getting that steering rack on there was a giant pain in the butt. But I don't think that's UPR's fault. I think it has something to do with my rack, because it was really hard to get it onto the factory K member. It was a doozy. So this didn't disappoint. Definitely a doozy, but I got it on there. And then I put the new bolts on there. So now what I'm hoping to be able to do here is I got a little carb lift plate, engine hoist, as you can see, and I'm hoping to be able to take the cherry picker in there, support the engine, drop the K member, put the new K member up and in, and try not to kill myself in the process. So let's give that a whirl. Okay, so this is kind of what I was talking about. I got the old engine hoist just kind of supporting it. Man, it's going to be hard to see, but the old motor mount is just floating. I can just kind of move the engine. Everything's a little bit tight. But I don't think I'm pinching anything. Even my coolant lines are still hooked up. So now I'm going to try to drop the bolts out of that sucker using this rig and try to get it out of there. See what happens. Got this side undone. Hold my bolts. I'm gonna move to the other side. When in doubt, something like that. It's a little breaker bar and a little little elbow grease goes a long ways. Let's see if we can get this side dropped down. Try not to take off my toe in the process. Whoops. That was weird, I wonder. Thunk it. Who would have thunk it? Oh, jeepers. That's probably fine. That one doesn't even have a nut anymore. It's okay. It's working. Gotta turn off the radio. You ever have those moments where you're like, I swear to Jeebus, if I spent all this money and it's not any lighter, it doesn't go any faster, I'm either going to sell it all or burn the thing to the ground. Well, when I pulled that out of there, it did not feel very heavy. I kind of had one of those moments in my head. But I'm proud to say, I don't know if I'm proud. I think I'm just internally happy, sending myself some gratitude that this wasn't all for naught. Picking this up, the stock K member, actually feels heavier than picking all of that up. So that's good news. That doesn't even have the, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't have control arms on it, doesn't have a steering rack on it, and it still definitely feels heavier than the other rig. So hopefully this will net me some good savings. I can't really quote what the brochure says, but hopefully it's substantial. I'm still keeping the factory spindles and brakes. That would really be a big upgrade for this car to go to set. Jake's got aerospace on his car. It's right here. Probably see him. Oh, boom. Fancy brakes. And not only did those obviously cut a fair amount of weight, but they actually stop way better than the factory brakes. Substantially better. The car. So I should probably do something like that, but I'm really going to try to put my money probably into a nice set of struts first before I worry about the brakes. So who needs to stop when you're going fast, right? So let's see if we can get this thing put in there.
In the NBA game in San Antonio, the Spurs, with a record of 5-28, tied up their game against Milwaukee. In the middle of the third quarter, it's 91.
That doesn't sound good. Probably fine.
30 points. Today he was named Player of the Month in the Eastern Conference. The late game, the only other game on tonight's NBA slate, after 10
I'm so good at this. Gosh. Look at that. All by my lonesome. Yeah, kind of looking like we're in there like swimwear. I'll get this all buttoned up. We'll go from there. All right, men. So the control arms and the K member are in there. It was a snap. When I was finishing this up the other night, a couple of buddies came over and they watched me struggle, but it actually wasn't too bad. It's pretty light, so to get it up in there and to get one bolt started and then just kind of walk it up side to side, it was super simple. One thing to note, this is awfully particular, but in case anybody's wondering, right here there's like a tiny screw, and I don't even know what it holds in, but when you drop your factory camera, make sure you take that screw out of the frame rail area, because otherwise this old girl will get up there and you're going to have an install issue. So I had to redrop it and pull that out. It was very apparent once I started tightening all the bolts up, but otherwise everything lined up really well. So I'm super happy with that UPR product. The only issue I had with it was getting the steering rack on, but that was a pain in the ass with a factory rack too. So our factory K member rather. So I think that's more of a steering rack specific kind of situation. So since then, I've been working on part of my hot side. So to give you an idea of what I'm doing, I don't know why I did it like this initially. Flange, right? And the turbo snobs will tell you don't do it that way. And I'd probably agree with them for the most part, especially if I was running low boost or ramping in slow. A lot of situations where I had zero problems with that and it worked out just fine. But what really drove me to change that is that, see right here, is it started to crack again. Now, the reason why it was cracking, I don't believe had anything to do with the weld or way it was made it in. I used to use a Maven mount. Great practice. Mount your turbos. I can tell you that from experience. I'm going to wrap that all together right now. With the Maven mount, it supported the turbo. The turbo is like 50 pounds. It's a heavy some gun. So with that, though, I was having draining issues. I put the oil drain in this area right here. You can see it. It's dash 10AN. Welded it into the front cover. And I didn't feel comfortable getting it lower. That really felt like the best spot for it. And for some reason, I felt like putting it into the pan wasn't as cool. So I saw people returning the front cover. I'm like, I'm going to do that too. Well, with the Maven mount and the height of the turbo so that it would clear the hood, I had some oil draining issues. And the only way to really solve that problem was to ditch the Maven mount, because that raised that fitting at the turbo up about an inch, and that gave me enough incline where it completely got rid of my turbo drain issues. I tried almost everything. I remade that line multiple times. Wasn't till I ditched the mount, remade the line again, then I was good to go. So that's a bummer. But now I need to rebuttal, because this cracking issue, I'm almost positive is because I'm not supporting that turbo, and I think it's really hot. You think about it, it's banging on the two-step. You're making piles of pressure in the exhaust going down the track when it's making 35, 40 pounds of boost or whatever it was making. And I think that area gets thin, and if you can actually look at it, and it's probably going to be super hard to tell on video, but this deal here is bulged out. And that's how I know that this is getting thin and cracking, because it's supporting the weight. And that turbo, because I've got a flex in the middle, this manifold and that one bend, and then obviously the flange, was supporting all the weight of the turbo. So bouncing on the track, piles of heat, some pressure in the exhaust, was enough to make it crack. Not just once, but twice. It cracked, and you can see where all the bird turd welds are. That's because I had to fix it once before, and it was kind of a pain in the butt to fix it. So that's what I think is going on. So in order to fix that, I took a hole saw. First I cut the flange off, right? Yeah, off. I took a hole saw, 2.5-inch hole saw, 2-inch hole, right? And I beavered out the side of a 2-inch pipe. And I'm hoping that I can massage. You can see there's a gap there. I'm going to have to do a little bit of hammering, a little bit of this, that, and the other thing. Maybe a little bit of tacking and hitting. Hopefully that fixes it. And then I'm going to use this handy hole in the middle, drill it out, and use an 1/8-inch MBT. And that'll be dual purpose, because I'm hoping to add, that'll be my opportunity to add a manifold back pressure sensor. So I'm not going to screw the sensor right into there, because the heat and the vibration would kill it. So normally you run like a stainless brake line from there back to some sort of expansion canister. So if you go from a tiny itty bitty brake line, then you expand it into like a 1.5-inch pipe that's a couple inches long. That expansion ends up cooling it and makes your sensors live longer. So I think I'm going to crack a lack on that. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to do, obviously, because still need a wastegate, I was beavering away on this. And what this will do, let me get my wits about me. Right, this is going to end up somewhere like this. Sorry, camera. Somewhere like this. And then this will be 90'd off of it, so that essentially the wastegate, when this thing's sitting in there, it'll come down the front and then wrap out the side to put it essentially where the old wastegate placement was. And then I will build some sort of support to tie that pipe to the wastegate pipe to kind of support it. So yeah, we'll probably get cracking on that, and we'll see where that takes us. Alright, so we got the patch in. You can see for the most part, it's not terrible. Kind of welding on cruddy steel and whatnot. You can see where I put that 1/8-inch PT bung. And you can see up here where I had to bird turd it. Because my weld was it went from great to not great really quick. So, yeah, I'll probably fit my little tube. I'll probably first kind of trace it, tack it out, fit it up in the car just to make sure that I won't have any issues with wastegate placement and how that's going to direct out. And then after that, I'll probably mark it with a Sharpie, bust it off, and then get to cutting, and then I'll weld it out all the way. This is where we are currently at. So you can see, did some welding on there. I ended up, tacking it all up, making sure it fit in the car. Then I came through with a sheet metal bit, bored a big hole in there, then came through with a grinder. I probably won't be able to see down in there. Then after that, I welded this pipe out individually, saved the flange. I was able to grind the material out of there and reuse it as intended, not butt welding, but with the factory step. Then I welded this whole deal on. Over here was pretty tough to get in there with the welder, so those welds aren't quite as nice, but they will do. They'll hold, they'll seal. And then I took a hole saw and went through Probably have it over here yet. See, I used a hole saw, boop, cut out that radius, 2-inch hole saw, or 2.5-inch hole saw rather, to match up with my hot side size, and then I just welded in the support so that hopefully when it's sitting in the car like this, that tab will hold that wastegate up really nice and not put extra stress on it. Oh, you can kind of see in there now, that light up there. So I'm hoping that's a more direct path than, you know, the original one, which was straight out the side. Obviously it still has to make it around a couple of bends and out the hole. I can't believe that it would be worse. I guess time will tell. If anything, I do think it looks kind of nifty. It's probably a little bit heavier, and I'm hoping it puts the wastegate in a little bit better spot, because previously the wastegate was super close to the frame rail up underneath here, to the point, you know, where I kind of like had to take a hammer, give her the old pop pop just to give her just a little bit of clearance. I don't know how I missed on that, but part of it had to do, once we put this aluminum block in, everything shifted oh so slightly, just barely, just enough to cause tiny problems. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get this fitted up in there, because the next thing we need to do is, I still have a little bit more to weld on this, because I want to make my own way to support it and hang it kind of off the frame rail, so that the turbo isn't just hanging in space like it was at the end of last year. So let's get started on fitting this. We'll grow it back up. You can see I got her all, yep, can you see? Yep, up there, all attached. See where my wastegate sits next to my fan. So there's that. What I'm thinking, I gotta figure out a way to brace this, something strong enough to hold up that turbo, at least give it a little bit of support, without using the Maven mount that I was using before. So let's try to figure something out here. Okay, first time putting the wastegate up with this new setup, so if it fails, you'll see it when I see it. You can see it in here, a little bit dark. You can see kind of, oh, a little tricky with one hand, but oh yeah, I got piles of room. That's kind of, definitely sits lower than it did before, which like I said, isn't a bad thing. So that's kind of where it'll be, and I'll probably clock it kind of like that, so that, or even maybe even more aggressively, right, depending on where that charge pipe sits finally. But yeah, put the dump right towards the ground. I think that'll work out well. Hopefully it has a better priority flow, help control those boost spikes. So I don't know if you can tell, I made a little 90-degree bracket. Well, it's actually a little bit more than 90 degrees. I'm going to try to lay a little bit of weld right here to make it stick. Nice little contaminated tungsten. Some welding rod. see shit. More heat. Try that. Whoa! It actually doesn't look that bad. I mean, it doesn't look great. It looks like a little pinhole in the middle, but we'll make it work. So hopefully that will support the weight. The weight of my turbo. And my wife running away. She's probably like, what are you doing out here? So that'll probably be how far I get today. And then I'm probably gonna take this whole deal off and spray it with the high temp coating that I did previously to make it all black, just to kind of make everything match, keep anything like that bracket's mild steel, so you know, keep that from rusting. Put a little coating on it, and I think that should work. So for now, I think, let me turn this noisy welder off. I think that's probably where we'll leave you. This video should have been putting in the K member. It's like, let me turn on the radio. I think for now that's probably where we'll leave this video. We got the to recap a little bit. You know, we put the K member with the control arms in. You know, it looks nice. The UPR unit went in flawlessly. I think it'll save me a bunch of weight off the nose. And then we did this wastegate tube modification. You can really see the way it flows through there. And then comes out this side right here. I'll probably have to redo my push lock lines just because it's a little bit farther away from them. And they were already cut to fit pretty neat before. And then obviously I, you know, made this little bracket with brace. And once I take these two clamps off, I'll just drill through right into this kind of pinch weld of the frame. As you can see, no tube front on this unit. That'll probably be kind of one of the next thing that the doctor order for space and for weight. But until then, I'll just drill a couple holes in there, probably use a couple like 7/16 bolts, hold it in place, and hopefully that'll give my turbo just like a little bit more rigidity, and hopefully it still is easy to get in and out of there without causing all sorts of grief. So I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you guys subscribe, because really the big thing that we've been kind of leading up to, I've been trying to get into the swing of making videos, but the big thing we're trying to lead up to here is kind of doing a complete rebuild on this. We've kind of made a decision that some of this rat's nest is wiring. It's functional. It looks like hell. So we'll probably at least rip the stuff out of the engine bay and kind of potentially start over with that. And then we'll decide what we do with the stuff in the car. But make sure you subscribe, hit the notification thing, so that when we do get this engine, which I'm hoping it'll be next week or the week after, we'll start cracking on that and get it in place and get the turbo kit built. And then for my car, it's just putting in the converter. I'll probably try to spool it up in the garage when I get a little bit warmer day, just to make sure that it's not crazy tight for some reason. Servicing the transmission slightly. New gaskets and stuff I think is leaking out of the servo cover, and then buttoning this whole thing up with new struts, and then my car will be pretty much sitting ready for next season. So, and then it'll be really working on a lot of fabrication and stuff to get that car ready. So I appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, subscribe. See you later.